Hello, everybody. Welcome to the lunchtime seminar. We're going to give you a few seconds to get settled in and dial in as participants and attendees start coming in. This is what businesses can do in response to the COVID crisis. I am your host, George Hawkins. I'm a partner here in the Tyson's Corner office of Dunlap, Bennett, and Ludwig. Welcome, and we're going to try to spend about a half an hour going quickly through some of the major issues that you might see as a small business or a large business owner in relation to the COVID crisis. And then we thought we'd open it up to questions and answers for about 15 minutes, if we have any. We hope we do. This is supposed to be interactive, so welcome. Also with me as your co-host is Tracy Comstock. Tracy Comstock, go ahead and say hello and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Tracy Comstock. I'm the president of Korean American Women's Chamber of Commerce. Again, thank you so much. First of all, I have to thank all of you guys and the DBL. Great help. Let me just speak in Korean too. Right? 안녕하세요. 저는 최태은입니다. 미주 한인여성경제연합회 회장이고요. 저희는 저희 이사님이신 조주 초키스 이사님과 그 다음에 거기 또 저희 법률 고문이신 저스틴 반포드 모시고 오늘 그 코로나 바이러스 역경을 디딜 수 있도록 우리가 이겨낼 수 있도록 법률적인 조언 받으려고 하고 있습니다. 감사합니다. Alright, go ahead, George.
All right, thank you, Tracy. A couple of housekeeping items and disclaimers before we get started. We're lawyers, we have to do these things. First is, because we're lawyers, what you hear today is general information. We form attorney-client relationships by written agreements and clients giving us money. This is a free seminar, and we're trying to give you some general information because we believe in public service too. We're very interested in that, both in serving the greater Washington community and our participation with the Korean American Women's Chamber of Commerce particularly. So if you need legal advice, please understand that this is not the time for legal advice. This is the time to learn enough information to know who to ask and what to ask. The next slide, please. Finally, a couple of things. You want to participate. Let's see how you can do so. First of all, you can change your view by clicking that little button you see in the corner on the right-hand side. You can participate via chat. You'll see at the bottom of your screen that there's a Q&A as well. And so if you want to submit your questions, please feel free to do so. We have somebody moderating and observing those questions, and they will text one of us during the seminar to see who's most appropriate to answer it. So there is a bit of a delay as we figure out who's the best person to give you the answer. So with that, let's get started with the first idea of COVID, which is everybody is working from home. So there's the panelists. So that's me in the middle with Justin and Leo, also known as Hyun, and Tracy. So we all will introduce ourselves as we go along. I am a partner here in Tyson's Corner. I primarily practice in business representation and litigation with a particular interest in helping the real estate community, both in litigation and avoiding it. So the next slide, please. Working from home. This is the new normal for right now. And the new normal means that as business owners, you need to know what that means. If you have the type of business that allows your employees to work from home, you should understand that there is a tendency to make sure that your work rules transfer to the home rules. And so you should set expectations in writing and have a normal business hours and things like that, and set expectations in writing, hopefully, about what you expect your employees to do. You want to trust them, but you also understand that life at home will be very complicated, especially like me. When I work from home, I have two children that want to interact with me during my day. I have to feed them, and I have to interrupt my work day differently than I was before. So that's the new normal for me. So understand that and be understanding of your employees' needs in that regard as well. Set an expectation about when and how they're going to reply to your emails or telephone calls. Don't say tomorrow. It should be an hour, half an hour in email replies. Kind of indicates to you that they're being attentive to your tasks. Set hours and responsibilities and core hours and when breaks will happen. I had a friend once who, when they worked from home, got in their car every morning and drove around the block and went back into the house to start their day, just to give themselves the mental framework to start their day from working from home is the same as working at the office. So set the ground rules and make sure that you have a clear and uncluttered space to work, because you can't work well if you're working on top of your other stuff. All right, so that's working from home. Next slide, I think, is going to be for Justin Banford. Justin Banford is one of my good friends and partners here in Tyson's.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, everyone. First, thanks to Tracy and the Korean American Women's Chamber of Commerce for partnering with us on this. It's a great resource. We've done a lot of these webinars recently, and there's a lot of questions being asked right now. Obviously, it's a very topsy-turvy period. Background on me, I'm a corporate attorney. I represent all corporate clients, a lot of SMB companies, small medium businesses, various industries, government contractors, tech, down to retail and hospitality and everything in between. For the last 2-3 weeks, I've been taking nothing but calls from executives and business owners and founders and entrepreneurs saying, here's what's going on with my company, here's what's going on with my business. We're either hurt or we're about to be hurt, or things may be happening. Obviously, our economy is completely interconnected. One domino falls, other dominoes are going to fall after it. So what the first slide I'm going to talk about here is the CARES Act, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. You probably all have heard about this act. It is very, it's getting a lot of buzz, it's very newsworthy. I won't go through all the provisions because there's a lot of them. And you certainly, on our website or our YouTube channel, you can see more detailed information about the act. But I will say at a very, very high level, what the administration and the Treasury Department, what they've done is they've kind of taken the lessons from the last, financial crisis, which was the financial crisis around 2008 with home loans and everything else. And what they learned from that period in our history, the post-mortem, was that the government did not act as quickly as it could have. And they were negotiating that TARP bill. It took forever to get money actually into people's hands. And the name of the game accordingly is to do as much as they can to get money as fast as they can into people's hands. So that's what the CARES Act primarily is about, is basically think of a helicopter going over the city, just dropping out money. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get money in hands of businesses, of individuals. They're letting people do a bunch of different things with taxes and payroll and retirement accounts, non-employment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever way they can push money to you, they're going to try to do so. So just a very few high-level points on the CARES Act. For businesses, if you're a business owner, there's two primarily loan programs going on right now. There's the Paycheck Protection Loans, and this is $350 billion that the SBA is going to push out to employers if they retain their employees. In addition to that, there's the Economic Injury Disaster Loans. This is going to be a very beefed up program with the SBA, where I'll just go through some very basic terms. Under the Economic Injury Disaster Loans, you can get an advance of $10,000 within 3 days, assuming you qualify and are eligible. And you can get up to a $200,000 loan with no personal guarantees and with light collateral. They obviously are working through the process on the back end, and I've done it with at least two dozen clients recently. I've gone through the loan application with them. You go to the SBA's website, you click on the Apply Now, and you go through each of these different loan programs, and you go through it. It takes you 5 steps. They're not requiring transcripts or documents or tax returns or anything at this point, or personal financial statements. Basically, you go through the application, you get a number, you get in line. Everybody should be doing this if they're a business owner. Even if you're in the gig economy, if you're an independent contractor or working for Uber or anything else like that, they have a whole bunch of plans that are out there to get money in people's hands quickly. Just to go through the next of it real quick, there will be direct payments back to taxpayers, individuals, married couples, people, children, families. You don't have to do anything. The Treasury Department's just going to issue checks. Unemployment, they're increasing the benefits there. Like I said, for payroll taxes, they're allowing employers to defer some of these. Retirement accounts, if anybody needs to draw from their retirement accounts now, they're waiving the 10% penalty. Suspend RMDs, the loan amounts for 401ks are going up. And then there's a lot of tax adjustments that are going on at this time too. So the basic point here is that there is resources available. There is going to be a lot of cash flushed into the system. The total bill for the CARES Act is going to be $2 trillion. And like I said, we're worrying about paying for this later. We're getting the money as fast as we can out there. So with that, I'll turn it back to George for the next slide.
So, I forgot my training. I didn't unmute myself. So thank you, Justin, for that. The next person who's going to speak is Leo. Leo has been associate and also he was a law clerk. We born and raised our own lawyers here. So Leo's been in our Leesburg office. Leo, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you're going to talk about?
Hey guys, I'm Leo. My Korean name is Hyungju, and I primarily practice trademark and copyright laws and state court litigation. I get involved in those litigation matters too, helping out George and other partners. And especially in the time of this coronavirus crisis, I agree to help out this presentation of this seminar. So I will try to share what I know about the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which was passed by the Congress on March 18, 2020, and immediately signed by the President Trump. And this law really provides free screening, testing, paid leave, and enhanced unemployment benefits to employees affected by the negative consequences of the coronavirus. And the benefits that come from the FFCRA are set to go in effect starting tomorrow and will expire on December 31st, 2020. And we're expecting that the Department of Labor will be issuing more specific regulations, providing further details on the implementation and the effect of the act. And until these regulations are issued, there are some questions to be answered. If any of you guys want to follow up with those questions, feel free to send an email to any of the panelists here. But essentially, the Act incorporates and kind of make edits to many provisions of the Fair Labor Standards Act and the Family Medical Leave Act regarding emergency paid sick leave and emergency family leave terms. And the most important part about this act, most important eligibility part about this act is that it only applies to employees who have been employed for at least 30 days, that's like a month, with a private sector employer with fewer than 500 employees. And so the private businesses that has more than 500 employees are really not covered by this act. And the law provides a separate exemption provision about a business owners with less than 50 employees. But as far as I know, the Department of Labor hasn't issued a specific guidance on who will be exempt under this provision. But we are expecting that this small businesses with less than 50 employees will qualify for exemption if the requirement from the requirement to provide leave due to school closings or childcare unavailability, if the leave requirements would jeopardize the viability of the business as a going concern. So now back to the two main key benefits to employees about this act. First, I'm going to talk about emergency family and medical leave expansion. This section, for those employers with less than 500 employees, and if their employees cannot work or telework because they have to care for a minor child, if the child's school or place of care is closed due to a coronavirus public health emergency, employers must provide these employees up to 12 weeks of partially paid leave under the prior Family and Medical Leave Act of 1993. Now that said, the first 10 days of such leave may be unpaid, or the employee can use the accrued vacation days as leave. And after that 10 days, the employee will receive a benefit equal to no more than 2/3 of the employee's normal wages or pay rate, and it's capped at $200 per day and $10,000 in the aggregate. And these benefits will not be subject to Social Security payroll tax. And for the time efficiency, I'll jump right next to the emergency paid sick leave section. So this provision requires all these employers to provide paid sick leave, obviously in the event of a public health emergency, but under this section, the employers must provide 80 hours of paid sick leave to full-time employees. If it is for part-time employees, the leave will be prorated. But the conditions to be entitled to this specific benefits is if the employee cannot work or telework and falls under either of the 5 categories. Number 1, subject to a coronavirus quarantine or an isolation order. Or number 2, being advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine due to the virus concerns. Third, if they're experiencing symptoms of coronavirus and seeking medical diagnosis. I think this is a very factual intensive inquiry that can go either way, who's experiencing symptoms or not, but I'll leave that to another day. But the 4th category is if the employee is caring for an individual described in any of the 1, 2, or 3. And the 5th category is if the employee is caring for a child whose school or place of care is closed, or the child care provider of the child is unavailable due to the coronavirus precautions. So essentially, for the employee who falls under this category, I think they can also look into the aforementioned benefits under the emergency family and medical leave expansion, because that section also imposes a condition for employee to be taking care of a minor child if the school or place of care is closed due to the coronavirus concerns. And the 6th category is any other substantially similar conditions specified by the HHS, in consultation with the Treasury and Labor departments. And just similar to the family and medical leave expansion benefits, paid sick leave does not carry over. So this paid sick leave time does not carry over to the following year, and it's only good until December 31st, 2020. And in terms of amounts, the benefits are capped at $511 per day and $5,110 total for an employee's own care, and $200 per day and $2,000 for total when the employee is caring for a family member.
Hey, Leo, let's turn it over to Tracy. Let's talk a little bit about some real estate matters, okay?
Just one last sentence.
Sure.
So what's good for the employees that they get a tax credit for this, and then employers are required to provide their employees with emergency paid sick leave. All these amounts will receive a refundable payroll tax credit to 100% of the money they spend on the leaves. And turn it over to Tracy.
All right, thank you, Leo. Thank you. Hey, so first of all, let me just introduce myself.
Go ahead, one slide.
Yes. Yeah, so can you hear me? All right, so not only I'm the president of KAWCC, Korean American Women's Chamber of Commerce, I'm the president and principal broker of Civil Line Realty located in Tyson's Corner. So I've been in this business over 20 years now. So I have tons of clientele, past client and current client, keep calling me about that landlord-tenant situation. So one of the questions they asked me was that, what's the difference between, in terms of the mortgage payment or even landlord lease payment, deferment and suspension or like temporary rent deduction, or all different types of terms. So this is something I need George to answer for my clients, because I tell them that I'm a real estate broker. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not in a position. That's one of the reasons we are holding this seminar today. So we want to make sure that we know the right term before we even approach the landlord before we do anything, because some of this, some of us, you know, as earlier, when you guys mentioned about this, even there's recovery SBA digital loans, like the people who own the business less than 500 employees. You know, most of us in Korean community, we have micro small business, I should say, like 4 to 5 people. Employee only, so very, very small businesses. We just don't know what to do, how we're gonna pay our rental payment and all that stuff. Not only their business places and their mortgage also. You know, some people don't even understand the difference between the oldest government-backed loan and the secondary market. So, you know, when they say, oh, maybe even 360 days, we don't have to pay the mortgage payment. Not for everybody. So we need to make sure that everybody understands there are differences, resources available. So those are the things I want George to answer. George.
Well, thank you, Tracy. So as a business owner, if you lease your premises, the first thing you have to realize is that you're not having a cash flow in, and your landlord will recognize that as well. We're all in this together. We're all one part of one unified economy, as Justin said. So if you think about it, the landlord is already expecting the call, is already expecting the email that says, I can't pay today's April 1's mortgage payment, and I don't know when I'll be able to. And that's a natural result of what's happening because of the COVID experience we are all enduring. And this is going to be a temporary thing. Our economy is naturally a strong place. So everybody should understand that we are going through a bad season, but that there is going to be a recovery because we're not fundamentally doing a market adjustment like in 2008, where the mortgage meltdown caused these things, where the banks needed to be bailed out. We may need to bail out airlines and other national industries and things like that. But fundamentally, our economy is strong, especially in the Washington metropolitan area. So you can, if you can make it through the bad time, and it will be a bad time, there will be time for you to make up whatever needs to be made up with your landlord. And you can tell them that. And you may say, I want it forgiven. I don't want to pay rent, which is a hard thing for a landlord to face on the beginning of the crisis where they're not getting their April 1 payment. But the landlord may respond to you by saying, well, let's wait and see, but we want you to do certain things to demonstrate that you are being a responsible tenant. We know COVID is not your problem, but if you didn't go onto the SBA website and make application for the small business loans or the rent bailout loans or whatever we have, and we have lawyers in our office who know exactly how to guide you through what type of loan to get. We have, if you have a language barrier, we can work through Leo and others to kind of help you through that. But fundamentally, you have to do something as a tenant to demonstrate to the landlord that you're trying. And it is a reasonable thing for the landlord to hope that you will be reasonable in your response. The landlord needs that information to make their own economic decisions, but also to negotiate with their own creditors, their own mortgage company. Hey, my tenants aren't paying on my commercial building. Therefore, I can't make the commercial loan payment to you. I have clients who are right now already have received mortgage forbearances on their mortgages for 90 days on their commercial buildings. So the cash flow out has been mitigated. So when the tenant says I can't pay, it's almost a kind of a holding period right now. At the end of the day, the lawyers will negotiate a written agreement that changes the terms of the lease to address the non-payment issue. Most landlords in commercial settings are not choosing to initiate eviction proceedings because they don't have a tenant to replace them with. And they're hopeful that with the government's intervention, that the economic reality will be caught up quickly so that they're not going to lose their building because of foreclosure. So that's what's going on here. So the whole idea is to be smart, to be conscientious with your landlord, and be honest with yourself and with your landlord about what you can and cannot do. Look to your family needs, make sure that you can take care of yourself. There are some jurisdictions that are also requiring residential loan foreclosures to be stayed. That's a big and controversial issue. And it will depend, I think, on the 3 jurisdictions you live in the Virginia area. If it's Virginia, you're probably not going to have state regulations that say you don't have to pay your mortgage. DC and Maryland, you have a better shot because of the nature of the politics and the history of those two jurisdictions. Virginia tends to say the market will adjust even in hard times. So you have to pay attention to what's going in the news. Don't turn off a CNN or Fox News just because you don't like hearing the bad information, because there is news. And you can ask yourself if you want neutral legal news. You can go to our YouTube channel or a webpage. We have a whole COVID support channel webpage you can go on and click on and get the most current information. So you can figure out what's going on. But if you don't understand what's going on, just reach out to Justin or Leo or me or Tracy and say, hey, Tracy, what's going on? Because we value our long-term relationship just as your landlord values yours. And if they don't value, then you might as well leave. But you have a business to run. You are an entrepreneur for a reason, because you like running your own business. So let's make sure that happens. I know I skipped a slide, so let's go back to Justin on his slide about how to deal with stakeholders.
Thanks, George. Yeah, so, as we've mentioned time and time again, this is a temporary setback for the economy, but nothing is fundamentally broken. Like I said earlier, my previous slide, I've been talking to business owners, all day, every day for the last 2 weeks. And I will say it is truly, enlightening and uplifting, the resiliency of our economy and of our private sector employers. Everybody is trying new things. Everybody is transitioning and pivoting and doing whatever they can to keep the doors open, keep business going, and, working around. In fact, I'm sure everybody's gone to the grocery store during this period. It's amazing how quickly they put up these, partitions and sneeze guards and everything else. And, the restaurants are all doing takeout now, and you have to order on the app and show up outside, wait on the sidewalk. It's truly amazing how adaptable our economy is to, change. We're all going to get through this. I think everybody needs to really, look at, what it will take to get through this. It's a bad analogy and I won't use it again, but the first thing to do is obviously take care of yourselves. So if you're a business, I'm speaking to business owners, make sure the business will survive. You can come back and rehire employees if you have to, do some furloughs or some layoffs, but, make sure the business will survive. Make sure you can do everything that you need to do. Identifying all possible sources of liquidity. So, anybody you can reach out to. If you have a line of credit, draw on the line of credit, put it in your savings account or your business checking account. Get all the liquidity you can right now. If you can sell assets, you need to sell assets. If you can, cut cost, whatever you can do to have liquidity. George spoke to this a little bit on the landlord stuff, but talking to your stakeholders. Now, my stakeholders, traditionally that means your owners of your company, your equity holders, but talk to everybody that has an interest in your bank or in your company. Talk to your bank, talk to your partners, talk to your vendors, talk to your clients, talk to whoever has an interest in seeing your business survive and prosper. So everybody's willing to work with you at this period. I've counseled plenty of clients, corporate clients, in dealing with their landlords, with their lenders, with their clients. There's a lot of flexibility right now. Everybody understands, and everybody wants to stay busy. Everybody wants to, nobody wants, things to grind to a halt. We're used to, in normal times, having a little bit of, if I don't get paid by X date, we're going to stop business and cease work, and we're going to, put your order on hold. Nobody's doing that at this point. You can see, GM is making ventilators. Everybody is moving to whatever they can do to help out. And the money will be there. Like George has said, nothing is fundamentally wrong with our economy. There's not a meltdown in the financial system. There's cash coming online quickly to help fund all this through the SBA, which brings me back to the CARES Act. The most important thing you can do is get in line, go through the application. If you have a company, obviously be truthful as you fill out the wizard. But if you can get through the application, you're eligible, get in line, get a ticket, and, at some point soon, there'll be a lot of action happening. Olivia, why don't you jump forward 2 slides to my next one. So again, it's so great to hear talking to entrepreneurs, employers. Nobody wants to lay anybody off. It's the last thing they want to do. If you do have to actually do something, though, to reduce your labor cost, first thing is, and I've never really understood or I've used these terms interchangeably, but employees hear a very different thing between a layoff and a furlough. A layoff suggests that you're being terminated indefinitely and it's through no fault of your own, but you're just being let off because the business can't support you anymore and you're laid off and you have no expectation that you may come back. A furlough, on the other hand, there is a connotation to that term that it's going to be a temporary thing and you'll be rehired in the future. So if this is just an optics kind of thing, but if you're going to have any reductions in force, use the term furlough. Say it's temporary. Say that we'll rehire you as soon as we can. If you are reducing your workforce, we're recording this on April 1st. I believe and Leo can chime in our questions and answers, and certainly it's on our COVID response website. But I believe the Family First Coronavirus Response Act takes effect tomorrow. If you do have to reduce your workforce, people, will not be happy about it, but they'll understand. There'll be unemployment, enhanced unemployment benefits, tax benefits, a lot of things coming online for them. But if you do have to do it, make sure you do it in the most proper fashion you can. You can see the alphabet soup of acts and laws that are kind of on the slide. They all still apply. Nothing is being told during this period. So the worst thing you could do is if you have to lay off, some employees or furlough some employees, is doing it in any kind of prejudicial fashion. So obviously you can't lay off, all the people of a certain class, all the people of a certain sex or gender or race or national origin, or you can't take any actions that would have a very disparate impact. So a lot of my clients have, recently got more, have done a lot on diversity programs. So a lot of their less senior employees may be people of more diverse nature, and therefore be in protected classes. So if you said everybody that has less than 2 years seniority is going to be furloughed, you may look at what the actual impact on that is. So, and it also helps if you're looking at departments or divisions. So if sales, if there's not a lot of opportunity for sales right now, you need to furlough sales, then furlough the whole department, and maybe keep the managing partner, the manager of that department, but everybody else, unfortunately, you have to let go. So the long and the short of it is, all the same laws still apply. There are going to be some employees that are going to be hurt in this, that may not be rehired, or and at some point the unemployment does run out. So that you want to act responsibly here. And just like I said, you have to look out for the company so that it survives. The actions you take during this period will be scrutinized, and so you want to make sure that if you are, it's certainly understandable and justifiable that you have to reduce costs to stay in business. You just want to make sure you do it in a smart way and you're being mindful of all the other things. I will say, every situation is specific. There are federal laws on this, there are state laws, and in some county or jurisdictions, there's local laws on employment. Just because an employee is at will does not mean you can fire them with any reason at all. So if you're doing it with any kind of against public policy, for a discriminatory purpose, because they have a disability or anything like that, that's not grounds to fire somebody, even if they're at will. But like I said, everybody's doing their best to keep everybody on. It's really nice to see, and I think we're going to all get through this. If I don't speak further on this presentation, I just want to say thank everybody for joining, and we're all going to get through this. And it's good to see everybody coming together. And George and I and Leo and Tracy and our whole firm is here to answer any questions you have. We're being very responsive. This is kind of all hands on deck time. So thank you, everybody.
All right, everybody. So we do open up for chat. You see at the bottom of your screen, hopefully the chat, or you can raise your hand, or you can do a Q&A. But in the time we have left, we have an optional slide to talk about what's happening in real estate, particularly. And one of the things you should, I'm a big movie fan, and one of my favorite movies growing up was Jurassic Park, and they were explaining how it could be that dinosaurs couldn't reproduce on the island. They said, well, they're all females, or all males, they can't reproduce. And one of the characters says, well, nature finds a way, and we're Americans and we're entrepreneurs, and we're going to find a way to make business work. We're doing teleconferencing right now. And in real estate transactions, we're going to be able to do video notarizations. We're going to do video litigation, where we talk to the judge and the judge is going to see us and see our offices. So we might have to tidy up a bit more. So we will find a way to make it work in this new normal. But one of the things you have to understand that the law has been around for a very, very long time, and the law considers everything and has already had unusual circumstances. And the law already has concepts that you apply to the new unusual circumstance. So when we had the great flu epidemic of 1918, the law already had things. When we had the stock market crash in 1929, we had something. When we had white powdery substances, if you all remember that, and the mail change, we had laws already addressing those things. And the interruptions and the delays that are arising in our business dealings are already addressed in the law. These things are usually in more complex commercial transactions called force majeure, which says an unforeseen delay is excused. So if you can't meet a deadline because you can't get something because of COVID, the law eventually in court will say you were excused from doing that. Even if you don't have a force majeure clause in your contract, you're going to have what's called the impossibility defense, which says it's reasonably impossible for me to do something that I can't do. If I can't get the loan because the bank is closed for business, or they've laid on everybody, so my loan can't be processed, the law is going to excuse your obligation to perform even a finance contingency that may have been waived. So you have an ability to negotiate with your other side that, hey, look, I got a reasonable expectation that the transaction would happen in normal times. We have unusual times, so you have to recognize that I'm going to be excused either temporarily or permanently from those things. The courthouses already have electronic filing, so our judicial system will work. And those counties like Fairfax County that don't have electronic filing are actually now receiving email filings of pleadings. I just filed one today by email. Hey, here it is. We'll put it in the file. We'll print it out for you and put it in the file, excusing the requirement for an original. So the law in America, we're entrepreneurs. We find a way to make things work, and we're going to find a way to make work in our real estate transactions. I know that now they're giving everybody their own pen. You have to come in and leave with your own pen, so they avoid the transmission possibly by having a pen. So you get a souvenir, but it also has a medical background to it, following the CDC's guidelines on things. So we're going to make this work all together. And I see we do have one question, so let's take a peek at it. So we'll go ahead and moderate that if there's a question there. Or has it been answered? How much wiggle room do you think hotel chains will have about canceling? So again, these are room and board contracts, and if most of the times if you can argue it and ask for your money back, use your credit card companies about those things. And for large organizations, say you just want to reschedule. We were just before this happened, I was having a large company event at Top Golf. I was gonna invite some of my key clients to drink alcohol and pretend to play golf. And so we had to cancel that. But in order to make it work for Top Golf, we just said we want to indefinitely postpone it. We're going to come back when we can. So we got our money back, but the reservation is continuing. So you kind of have to think outside the box. Sometimes you say, well, our convention can't happen in August. Can we reschedule for May? So, they still have an expectation of business. So no one's losing. It's just changing the timing. You can change the numerator and denominator of many of these transactions. Tracy, do you have any final thoughts or conferences you want to say?
Yes, in fact, I have a couple questions. Because I get a lot of calls for the last few weeks. So I just wanted to hear it from you. There is a difference between forbearance and forgiveness in terms of rental or mortgage payment. There is a difference between forbearance and forgiveness. So I need you to clarify that one.
Right. Just like in the 2008 mortgage meltdown, a forbearance agreement basically changes the timing of when you ultimately have to make the payment. It adds usually, it made a 30-year mortgage, a 40-year mortgage, for example. You saw that a lot in the mortgage workouts. A forgiveness is an income event to the taxpayer, meaning if I forgive a debt, that's income to you. So just sometimes you don't want to forbear and have a tax burden, but it might be good in the short run to have your rent forgiven. And that means that you never, ever owe that rent. Now, most landlords don't like to give that up, especially in April. Maybe by September, they're more willing and more beat up from the process to do so. But right now, the tenant's position is, I'm not paying the rent. I can't pay the rent. It's a factual impossibility. I can't do it. So it doesn't matter whether you call it a forgiveness or forbearance to the tenant legally. It'd be nice to the landlord to agree immediately and say, oh, don't have to pay the rent ever, but they're not going to do that. But they will say, we'll be patient and figure this out together. A good landlord will.
Yeah,
A landlord that's otherwise not obligated to do so will.
yeah,
So but yes, your answer is forgiveness is forever, but forbearance is delayed.
right. So what about the deferred payment, deferment?
Well, the deferred payment could take the form of many things. You can skip months and tack it to the end of the lease. You can skip months and add additional pieces of that money that was skipped to the future payment, so a little bit paid back in monthly installments. It's all a matter of negotiation. And for tenants, I think that the difficulty is they don't know how long we have to act to keep the flattening the curve will take, right? So as long as it takes to flatten the curve is as long as they won't be open for normal business and transactions. So it's a difficult thing for both the tenant and the landlord to negotiate when they don't know how long it's going to last. So in the short term, they're faced with not paying the rent. And so the tenants usually don't want to agree to any kind of permanent solution, and it does depend on whether there's a personal guarantee and other obligations.
And one other question, in terms of residential real estate, tenant eviction process, like let's just say tenant cannot make a rental payment, residential. So.
Well, in a residential landlord-tenant act in Virginia especially, most of the courts are closed except for emergency things or criminal things. So as a practical difficulty, getting a hearing on evicting a tenant is very difficult. I have a client out of England that has a tenant who has not paid the rent prior to this going down. And they're like, well, get him out. And I'm like, where? I mean, I can't hire 3 thugs to come in the middle of the night and say, you're moving now. I have to follow the law. And so right now, the only way to get an eviction in most jurisdictions is to use the power of the court with a piece of paper that ends at the end of a trial. And you can't get those trials because you can't get into court to have your first date set for those trials. So there's going to be a backlog of those things. And again, there might be a forgiveness issue. There might be a government program depending on your jurisdiction for residential housing. But in the meantime, landlords who are, decided to become a kind of passive investors in real estate are going to have difficulties. Their most important thing is to get a statement from the tenant that I'm not paying my rent and take that to the mortgage company saying, how do I forbear or forgive my loan payment to you? So reach out to your own people. Right. The problem with most of these folks who are small investors, frankly, is they never told the truth to begin with about what they were doing with the money. They said they were going to occupy the home and never did. So look before you leap as well.
Right, right. All right, thank you, George. And I have another question for Justin. Justin, you there? Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, most of us in Korean community, majority of our small business owner, small business owner, like they have less than 4 or 5 employees, including themselves. Sometimes they're one-man shop. Okay, so the question that I got frequently for the last few weeks was that, okay, for in terms of tax purposes, like I've been paying myself as a salary worker, as the president of this corporation or LLC, whatever their in terms of their organization is. But anyway, so what they were asking is, can I still claim for unemployment insurance because I've been paying myself? That was the question that I've heard a lot. Can you answer to that for me? Thank you.
Yeah, Tracy. Actually, I'm not so sure on that. To be frank, I mean, I think if you're self-employed from your own company, I don't think you're allowed to claim unemployment. But that could frankly be wrong. So let me look into that. We can kind of circle back, and just on some other questions I'm kind of seeing here. With respect to the hotel question, I had a very similar situation a few years ago with the Zika virus where a client had a you know, they had their annual retreat with, I think it was like 800 employees and their families going down to Miami. And this was during the Zika virus. And in CDC, you know, considered Miami a disaster area because of the Zika virus. And, you know, they had this, you know, Hilton, you know, conference room all reserved, and they were going to have their big conference. You know, and it really came down to reviewing the contract and the force majeure. And this was not something they could really relocate to another time. But ultimately, we were able to negotiate a successful outcome on that. So speaking to Jill on this, that might be something that you, you know, talk to us offline about, see if we can help you. And I think there was another question. But sorry. Anyway, on the tax stuff on the 401ks. Yeah. So the regs are still being written on that. You know, this is really going to be probably more a CPA question than anything else. But it is certainly something that we're all going to learn about. And you know, I will say a lot of things are happening extremely quickly now. You know, all the details are not there yet. And truthfully, you know, it's going to take a while before everything shakes out. But yeah, I think, you know, we'll get there. And if you need to do something, you can certainly do so. I mean, I think the name of the game again is survival. But yes, I understand that, you know, 401k RMDs are being suspended, and they're increasing the limit on how much you can loan from your 401k company. And Tracy, I will check with our employment law partner, Phil Schwartz, on the unemployment claim for yourself.
All right, thank you.
I will say that, you know, our firm, you know, we have 80 attorneys. We cover all areas of business life. You know, I'm more corporate mergers, acquisitions, estate planning, contracts. George is a lot of our litigation. We have, you know, I'll just run through the list real quick. We've got litigation, corporate work, immigration, employment law, estate planning, you know, any kind of debarment or government securities type stuff. Essentially anything a business owner could need, we have a person that we do it. And, you know, as you've seen kind of from these slides and all the acts here, you know, no one person can know it all. So we take a team approach. You know, we knock on people's doors, we get the right answers when we don't know it ourselves.
Awesome. One last question. I don't know, I'm asking maybe you're the right person or not, but in terms of this SBA disaster loan, you quickly mentioned earlier that up to $10,000 for small business owners, they can just go through all this questionnaire, would go to SBA website. And so, you know, in fact, that one, I did it for myself too. So, and I was helping my clients to get those applied online too. So one of the questions my client has during those assistance that I was providing, what if you just opened up your business last year, so you haven't filed a tax return yet for 2019, and they don't have any tax return record, and are you still, you know, qualify for those kind of SBA disaster loan? That, you know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, on the first page of the wizard, there is a question that's asked, you know, how long has your company been in business? And I think you have to be in business as of January 31st, 2020. Now, obviously, you know, you would not have filed a tax return yet, you know, and that may subject you to more underwriting scrutiny later on. But if your business was open prior to January 31st, 2020, then you should be eligible to get to the next tier, the next step of the application.
Oh, okay. So,
well, thank you all, everybody, for participating today. I really appreciate the great questions. And Leo, thank you for your time. Olivia and Amy, thank you so much for your support. We have a wonderful staff here at DVL. We couldn't do these things without our people. So we're doing everything possible to keep them here and keep them healthy. So I want everybody to stay healthy, be smart. The whole idea is don't find a loophole to not stay at home. Stay at home if you have to stay at home. But you can do a lot of things virtually and by telephone and by video conferencing, and we're here for that too. And remember, we're in this together, and we'll all get through this as a nation and as a community together. So thank you all for allowing us the time to talk to you. If you have further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to anybody here. If you want a copy of these slides, that's also something that we can make accessible as well. Thank you all.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Olivia.